Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Line Change. My name is Michael Leboff. Joining me for this episode and every episode are Tim Kalinowski and Nick Martin. And together, the three of us are going to break down a very busy Thursday night. That's March the 28th in the National Hockey League. A ton of games to get to. So we'll get right into it with our favorite underdogs, three picks, all plus money here. And we'll start with you, Tim. You're going to go against the magic of the Nashville Predators. The Preds are minus 166. They're traveling to Mullet Arena to take on the Arizona Coyotes plus 140. The total here is 6. Why do you like the Yotes?
Oh man. Well, first off, I don't know why I'm wearing my hat backwards here if I got my Yotes hat right here. Look, funny enough, this will be the fourth time these two teams played this season. Yotes actually have the series lead on the season 2-1 with that loss to the Preds coming in overtime as well. And the last time they played was well, you look back to the January 20th game that these two played in Mullet Arena. There was no back-to-back or anything like that going on. And the Yotes won that game, and Nashville had closed as a minus 135 favorite. So now you got Nashville as a minus 166. I know that a lot has happened over the past 2 months, but you look at the spot for Nashville coming off of that crazy Vegas game. I just think going cross country here, it's just a little too much love for Nashville. I think that they're kind of ready to get caught some way somehow. I know that's not the best way to set up a handicap, but when you factor in the cross country travel, and like I said, with the way that the Yotes have played them well this season, I think it's just a little too much.
Yeah, I agree with you. We'll see where this price goes because I do think there'll be playable numbers. The best number available is plus 148. I would have that as worthy of a small play. I think the Yotes are trending up a little bit, getting a little bit of goaltending here, and got their guys back offensively aside from Hayton. So I'm with you. There's probably going to be a time to sell in the Preds. I think this is close to it. It'll be interesting to see where the number moves and kind of how the sharper money views this game because I think obviously a ton of people will look to ride the Predators, but the number is starting to look pretty long for a Yotes team that's pretty competitive. The other thing, though, to factor in would be depending on if like you are also a listener who happened to have Yotes futures, they're not entirely dead yet, right? Like if you think they're going to win this game, Tim, they actually are like it's pretty reasonable to think they could get to 74 because they would then be at 67 and 73. So I'd also factor that into my wanting to bet the game.
Yeah, and well, I just added that quickly. Like I was doing work on my futures profile today, and I looked at that one, and I'm like, okay, it's getting. I did the great thing. I took my eyes away from it for a little while, then went back, and then I went, okay, we have a chance here with 10 games left. So, yeah, it'd be ultra nice. It'd feel like we'd be playing with house money if they can steal one from Nashville here.
Yeah, it would be. I'm just counting it out in my head right now too. So yeah, it should be pretty close. They'll need to win 2 games versus good teams, really good teams.
Yeah, it would be Coyotes or nothing for me here. I think that the we've been waiting to take a shot against these Predators. I was on them against the Knights on Tuesday night in a wild win. Count my stars there and walk away from that one. But they're buzzsaw. The Coyotes are quietly like just putting things together. They look a lot closer to the team we saw in like the middle of November or late October, middle of November than they do the one that was just brutal through the dog days. So back on the Coyotes, man. It's very nice to be back there. My favorite underdog. I'm gonna take a shot with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Do something that I do quite often, and that's go against the Pittsburgh Penguins when they're laying a huge number. Uh, Pittsburgh's minus 225 at home. Columbus plus 185. The total here is 6.5. It's not too um, complicated a handicap here. I just with the way Pittsburgh's gone all season, you cannot trust them at these kind of prices. The Blue Jackets should be, it's been bad for them of late, but they should start to like at least play a little bit better than what we've seen over the last little while, including a loss to Arizona the other night. So this is much more of a play against Pittsburgh than one on Columbus. We know that the Penguins have plenty of flaws, especially defensively. And if Columbus can get the goaltending necessary to keep them propped up in this game, I'll be quite happy because I think that plus 185 is way too long to uh, put on a team going against Pittsburgh right now, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take the coward's way out and say I'm a little indifferent. If I could get this number tomorrow, I'd maybe get there. But I think Columbus has gone from being like a scrappy dog to like a Sharks level team right now. Boqvist had been quietly steady for them. Alex Nylander was hot. Chinakov's a great player. Like they've quietly, it's one of these instances where I think that the injury situation's actually gotten a lot worse than maybe some people are realizing. That was part of the reason I liked them, or I liked the Coyotes last night when it was look to be a pretty big number, but I think that the Blue Jackets really are just this dinged up. So I'd keep my eye out on like the line that morning skate. I do think there's some relevant guys that are day to day, but they're just, man, they're so depleted. Like it's really gone from like having guys that were competent to fill in to just having people, just having AHLers. So that's the fear for me.
Yeah, Leboff, I knew the second I saw these lines come out, I knew this was going to be your dog for some reason. I'm genuinely in your camp and that Pittsburgh shouldn't be a minus 225 favorite to anyone right now. And not because I think that Pittsburgh sucks or anything. I just, you kind of have to factor in that it feels like they're playing out the string a little bit, even though, they got a big win over Carolina. My problem here is, guys, I don't know what the Blue Jackets did to deserve this schedule. This roadie at Detroit, at Colorado, at Vegas, at Arizona, now all the way back east at Pittsburgh. That for a team that is depleted, I don't know how many cents that should be worth towards the line, but I feel like it's one of the worst travel spots I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they've been getting demolished. So maybe like they're due for a little bit of pushback, but I think it's just a team that's out of gas. I don't think a lot of guys are happy with their situation. And all three of their last couple games they competed last night, but it's been a pretty tough
The
one.
blue line, at least the blue line is still kind of relatively like as good as it's, been for most of the season. It's, Boqvist, like you said, is a loss, but it's not decimated. You look up top for the Blue Jackets and it's not pretty, but I don't really trust the Penguins and I'm happy to take them on here. So we'll see. And I do think that there's a chance we see this number get bigger as more lineup confirmations come out. All right, that moves us on to your underdog, Nick, a team that treated us very well on Tuesday night. We'll go right back to them. The Chicago Blackhawks are plus 160 against the Ottawa Senators, minus 192. This one in Ottawa and a total of 6.5.
Yeah, I'm going right back on the Hawks here. I would even more so than last game. I would love to know that it's going to be Soderblom, or sorry, not going to be Soderblom. But I think again, you probably just have to run that risk. The exact same thing I said for that game was that the line was going to move overnight, and then if you waited, you were going to be stuck losing line value, which is exactly what happened. I think this is going to be the same thing. I think plus 160 is too long. The Hawks are actually competing really well right now. They continue to actually move play in the right direction. In the last 10 games, they're well over 50% in terms of expected goals. And I actually think their play has looked like that. And I'll continue to point out that those games have come against a super easy schedule. Like a lot of that data is just that they've been the much better side versus like a San Jose or a Ducks. But I mean, Ottawa back to back is still somewhat in that vicinity. And it would be such a Sens thing to bring the competitive game tonight and let down tomorrow. So that's really what I'm hoping for, not the opposite. And the thing with Chicago that we also keep pointing out is that they had such a beat up lineup, and particularly on the back end, which is actually now looking like somewhat of a strength, which is kind of insane. But Korchinski's playing really good, Vlasic's playing really good, and Seth Jones has found a much better run of form. So it just their ceiling really has raised, and I feel like it's one of those things no one's really noticed because it's Chicago. Like they're 6-4 over the last 10, and if you've been riding them, you've been doing quite well. So obviously they still deserve to be an underdog here, but I think plus 160 is definitely too long catching an Ottawa team in a back-to-back spot. I think they'll again make this one into a pretty competitive matchup.
I know you say you want Soderblom here. You don't want Soderblom, and that's true. But I guess a team like Ottawa, I don't think it makes a huge as big like it won't keep you up at night if he's confirmed because the goaltending on the other side, you just could be an absolute disaster any night for the Sens as well. I'm right there with you. I think that this is it would have been my pick if you didn't get there first. The Blackhawks are, as we said, going into that Flames game, that looked like a great spot. They they paid it off pretty quickly and sweat free. And I think that it's the type of team we try to sort these bottom dwellers into two different categories, like the blacklist teams and then the other teams that have they're not playing for anything, but they are sort of playing for something. And I think Chicago definitely fits into that second bucket and is a team that you're going to be wanting to bet on down as they play out the string here, Tim.
No, you were bang on. I want to just take a screenshot of all three of us in the app on Chicago against the Flames. It was a tremendous call by you guys on Tuesday night. I'm happy you convinced me. I think, it's funny as baseball's around the corner here, Leboff, you mentioned about teams to back right now and teams not. I know a lot of baseball people that start their handicapping with pitchers to back that they want to back and pitchers that they want to fade. I think with those last 10 games left here, you can look at some of these bottom dwellers and say which teams look like they're still interested in playing and which teams look like they, have a foot towards a warm vacation. Colorado, or excuse me, Chicago, you could probably say with the addition of Bedard this year, they're one of the few, pretty horrific teams that look like they're at least still having fun. It looks like they, with Foligno, and they just they had a decent vibe to them all year long. And I think it's kind of paying dividends here right now. And again, we haven't seen Ottawa play on Wednesday night yet, but by all means, this is an Ottawa team that can play up and down to their opponents. And I'm happy on a back-to-back to back a Chicago team that has some good vibe going to them.
Yeah, what you're saying about Luke Richardson and the vibe, completely different in Chicago than a team like Columbus. Like if you follow
Right.
what their media is saying and what the attitude around the team is, it's a whole different story in the fact that he's still forcing guys to compete. He's still bag skating guys after a win in San Jose, which I know doesn't count for a lot, but it is one of those things like everything you can find is kind of telling that they're not accepting just like complacency. And I think when you couple that with the fact that the worst stretch was when they just had none of their NHLers left on the roster, I think it's fair to say that they are just kind of trending upwards. And the other note that I think is a little bit interesting, I don't ever really think that teams are tanking too directly. Maybe they'll make decisions like, say, playing a Soderblom more than they would. But Chicago's in a pretty clear little tier in terms of the race for Celebrini. They're 7 points up on San Jose, which is obviously humongous considering San Jose probably won't get that many points the rest of the year. And then they're 5 points below the Ducks. So they're almost a lock to finish 31st. So I don't hate knowing that, as an organization, they shouldn't really be trying to do anything but just win as much as possible. So yeah, hopefully they stay hot here on Thursday.
It's a good point.
Okay, those are our underdogs: Jackets, Hawks, Coyotes. Wonderful. Let's get into the big board. We'll unfortunately start with the Islanders. They're plus 164 against the Florida Panthers in Florida. The Cats minus 198. This total is at 6. I don't really have much from a betting perspective. This looks about right. It would be very Islanders for them to get up and surprise us here with a good performance, but I do have my concerns about like where they are at as a team as they are looking down like a 6% chance to make the playoffs. So and they're playing a Florida team that can just demolish them if they're on their game. So nothing here for me, Nick. You perhaps are going to lean with the Cats though.
I lean with the Cats. The best number available, and I don't want to dwell on this too long when the shows are long. The best number available is minus 177. I would go to minus 185. I think that it's a little short. The Panthers coming in off that Boston loss, which was a fine game. Another game of having Forsling and Barkov back in the mix Thursday should be at closer to full health. It just looks a little short to me with what the Panthers have shown this season. Maybe you do get like a bounce back performance from the Isles, but at this point, scoring upside looks a little limited. I think, the back end is prone to making some mistakes. So it feels like the little buyback they got underwater. Even with that in mind, it's still versus like one of the very best teams in the league looks a little close to me, some of these prices.
Yeah, I've washed my mouth out of the New York Islanders and I have spit it into the sink. I've had enough of them. I considered considering maybe overtime here. Just Florida's is an under team, and maybe that's the way it goes. Islanders go through scoring droughts themselves, so maybe it's a low event game that goes to overtime. But that's all I would really be interested in the slate.
Okay, team of the moment, Washington Capitals plus 154 in Toronto. The Leafs minus 185. This total is at 6.5. I don't think you walk away from that Detroit Red Wings win as a better and being like, okay, my uh feeling on the my power rating on the Capitals goes up a bit. I think that there was a pretty scrappy win. Lindgren was incredible at times with some 10 bell saves. Huge win though. Like there's a difference, right? As a fan, you're absolutely jumping over the moon that they get those 2 points. But as a bettor, you look at it and you're like, ugh. That said, like the Leafs are showing some flaws and some malaise, I think, at their game. They have responded really well to those kind of things, and they got called out by their coach after what he called an immature loss on Tuesday night against the Devils. So perhaps you get like a little bit of a response there. I don't want to bet against this Capitals team when they get to this kind of price though, just because of their playing style. They're so good at muddying the waters and punching up. So it would be Capitals here for me, if anything. But I don't know if the number's quite there yet. So let's see where it goes, Nick.
I lean with probably ending up on Lindgren saves is the way I'll end up likely targeting this one. And the Caps, if they do find a way to hang around this game, it's going to be a good Lindgren performance and just being opportunistic the way the Devils were. I didn't really even think Toronto was that bad in that game. You could argue their breakdowns were pretty ugly, but they still kind of just demolished them and have been pretty good for a while here. So I'm not really interested in touching the Caps. I'm a little biased. I really want them to win this game. I really want Carberry Coach of the Year, but I think the prices look about right. It feels like it's going to be pretty well one-way traffic with the Leafs just owning much of the puck here. And especially like I think we've seen the absolute most of it from the Capitals the last 2 games, and it continues to be like the timing and the timing of the saves and the goals has just been so perfect for them. But there was times in the Jets game and then that Wings game where things really could have gone off the rails. So I think this one
We've
looks
been saying that
appropriate.
all year. We've been saying it all year. Yeah.
But the thing is, they had been playing better. I
Yeah.
just think it's starting to show a little bit. And then the other thing I guess that's really relevant is what kind of a lineup the Leafs have. I had noted ahead of that Devils game that I thought it was a little idiotic that people were betting into that Morgan Riley trend that the Leafs were like 17-2-1 without him, because I think when you stop and think about it, it's pretty unlikely that a team's actually just like super powered because they don't have their best defender. And sure enough, it was the time that things happen to go wrong when they don't have their best defender. But yeah, didn't really have too much here. I think Lindgren saves to 28.5 is worthy of a look, though.
Yeah, I'm coming at it from the perspective that Nick, you touched on a little bit in that I was looking to fade Washington before this opened, because it just seems like everything seems to be the timing of everything's right, and it just they get a save when they need it. They score a power play goal when they need to. And I'm also trying to think like this team has to be exhausted. I mean, every game has just been not only high stakes, but it seems like an emotional roller coaster as well. Whereas Toronto, I also didn't think that they were as bad as advertised against New Jersey. Also, Sheldon just gave the Leafs a little bit of a kick in the ass in his post-game presser. So I feel like this could be the natural turn of events when the Leafs, play well again after everyone's like, you laid an egg against New Jersey, and but I kind of have to see what the Leafs lineup looks like. They've had a bunch of injuries and they're kind of mixing and matching both in the forwards and on defense as well. The goaltending still makes you scratch your head a little bit. So I do want to bet Toronto here. I think I do, but I just need to see the lineup.
Yeah, I can't really dispute that. And it really does feel like once you put aside the noise, the Leafs are playing pretty well. Like we really got lucky, obviously, in that Carolina game where we were huge on them. They showed really well. And then I was stupid enough to go back in the same kind of spot on the Oilers the next week and then act super surprised that that was the way the game went. And then they played really well in Carolina the next night, considering the spot. So yeah, yeah, they might beat the Caps. Spence.
They might. They might. We'll see. Flip a coin. Wings and Canes. Up next. Team that's now chasing the Caps. Are plus 190. Red Wings 2 points back of Washington. They've also played one more game. Washington has the tiebreaker right now in regulation wins. Plus 190 in Carolina. The Canes minus 230. The total 6. They lose in Pittsburgh in a funny game where everyone was talking about former Penguin Jake Gensel, and it was former Hurricane Alex Nedeljkovic that ended up stealing that one from Pittsburgh in what was a game, I think a result that very few saw coming, including myself. I would be perplexed if Detroit, with their defensive misgivings, the way they've been playing at 5-on-5, don't if they don't struggle here. This looks like a really bad matchup for the Wings. Catching a Hurricanes team who plays so well at home uh, against a Red Wings team that does not play well on the road. And we know they're 5-on-5. They're the Carolina's elite 5-on-5 play all the time. So I think that the only way you're thinking Detroit has a legitimate avenue to success here is a goaltending disaster for the Hurricanes, or the exact opposite going the other way, Nick.
Yeah, I would note that I do think Detroit's play is trending upwards a little. I thought that they were pretty good for pretty excellent actually for 2 periods in Nashville, considering what they're doing. And then obviously last night probably could have got a better result. So I feel like we have seen the worst of it for Detroit, which scares me a little. They're so clinical in front of goal. Power play's great. But yeah, I like that. Like you said, we do know that they're getting outshot by 15 in this game. Um, I didn't really have a strong lean here. Obviously, rooting for Carolina myself.
Yeah, I took Carolina on the puck line. I got it at minus or plus 110. I still like it maybe to minus 110. I think that Carolina is just we talk about Detroit and the team that has a tendency to get outshot. Well, Carolina has a tendency to outshoot just about everyone. So I'll take that aspect of it right there and hope that Carolina can just run them out of the building in terms of 5-on-5 play. Talk about teams that got to be exhausted. I mean, in Detroit, it's been really difficult for them. A lot of these ginormous playoff type games, and then with that, I like if you can get over 6 as well. I could see this. I could see Carolina getting their fair share, and then Detroit on the power play maybe gets theirs. So I like over 6 here as well.
Okay, we'll make it real quick on the Sharks and Wild. Sharks plus 280, Minnesota minus 355. This total 6. It looks like a pass across the board from us. Are there any props, derivatives, Nick, that do you want to touch on before we kick this one?
No, there's nothing I think is going to jump out without seeing the numbers to me.
Okay. On
I
to
thought about it. I thought about it, Sharks. I thought about it.
I know it'd be the type of one you'd want, but it's been dreadful.
It has. I mean, I will say I'm not interested in slamming the Wild.
Right.
I'll put that out there. They've given me just enough concerns lately in terms of their offensive depth and kind of, I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like the one you want to try it.
Flames and Blues up next. Calgary plus 115, St. Louis minus 135. This total 6. St. Louis kind of played itself out of the playoff race with the overtime loss to Vegas. Then the Knights went and I guess they creaked the door back open just like a touch by not getting the full 2 points in Nashville after you're up before 1 late. But it is basically must win from here on out for St. Louis, who we're really trying hard to make a race out of this. I don't really think there is one. Calgary, on the other hand, it looks like they're starting to kick. They're on the beach, as we'll say. A pretty bad loss, uninspired effort from them in Chicago. I think that makes it a little dangerous to go against them. You'd expect a bit of a response. So I'm happy to pass here. I think that there's nothing all that interesting with these prices, Tim.
I thought about St. Louis. I was hoping one of you guys could convince me on St. Louis because we've been pretty anti-Calgary here. I feel like what is scaring me off is I don't want my side to be aligned with the fact that a lot of people are going to look at this game and say St. Louis needs it and Calgary's out of it. And so like that kind of makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I actually, for a change, am leaning with St. Louis as well here. I think that part of what's going on in Calgary is that that blue line is just simply not what it was now, and it's just falling off the rails. And Shillington had a little bounce back when he first returned the lineup, which was a good story, but he's been getting crushed lately. And now I just look at what's left of that unit, and it's not what it was. The Blues played quite well versus the Knights too. Like I think if they bring
Yep.
that game here, I'm happy with this number. Maybe Calgary bounces back, but I'm leaning at minus 137 with the Flames. I think if I knew Dustin Wolf was going to play, I'd actually probably just lock in the Blues. So keep your eyes out on that. I mean, the Flames will respond, and I'm not super high on the Blues, but it still feels like that's pretty well credited considering the way St. Louis has kind of competed and found ways to win. So I don't know. I'm definitely not talking anyone off the Blues here. And I should note too, I don't know if this has crept into the team, but the Flames fans I know are rooting for losses hard. People were
Right.
pumped last night because they are in kind of a pod. Like they're right with the Kraken and Pens. I don't know if you want to factor that too much into your handicap, but there might be a little bit of complacency in the organization of just like, all right, we're at the end of it here. Let's just get a damn draft pick.
Rangers and Avalanche up next. Interesting price here for a couple of reasons. One, um, it people are looking at these two teams as two of the 4 or 5 Stanley Cup favorites right now, but Colorado is minus 162. I think that they do get a little bit more of a tick for home ice advantage than most, so that's part of it. Rangers plus 136, total 6.5. There are some injuries to parse through, with Truba and Lindgren out for the Rangers, but as Nick has noted a couple of times, I don't think that those losses have impacted their play at all, where you should be, you know, adjusting numbers all that much. Valerie Nichushkin is out for the Avalanche for it's not long term, but they said he won't play tomorrow, so that's something to consider. But what this is telling you is that the market does see Colorado as a would be a favorite on neutral ice by a considerable margin over the Rangers. Should it come to it, nothing here for me. I do think one angle that is kind of interesting with the Rangers now is betting live overs. With the way that their game scripts have gone, especially if they're trailing, like they are a team that you can beat the Rangers for 56 minutes, and if they just win their 4-minute game by 2 or more, which they are so good at doing, you're in a lot of trouble. It completely throws the game off the rails. We saw it against the Flyers. We saw it against the Panthers. I just think that is actually something that they specifically are really, really good at. And the Avalanche can also do that. Like the Avalanche are a much better team at the other 56 minutes, so to speak, of the game. But if, the Rangers get out to an early goal in this game, all of a sudden both one offense needs to push the pace. I think the other one would be there. So live overs or just like live betting this game could be one way to attack it here. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I had a play on the Avs at open, and I would still play to minus 150, particularly if Gustafsson remains out. I've defended what the defense core would be the other games, but part of the reason we liked Philly last night was I thought with Scanlon coming in that it was now taking a pretty considerable hit. I like Jones a lot, and Gustafsson's been sneaky, really, really good. Wish the Caps still had him, but yeah, I think it's going to be a really tough spot for this decor if they don't at least get him back to handle the Avs. And like you said, their Avs home ice advantage has been pretty insane. 28-7. Teams coming into the altitude there have struggled mightily. So don't love not having Nichushkin, but I think it's definitely the Avs or pass here for me.
Yeah, I hit the Avs unopened as well. The line is kind of pretty much gone away. It looks like when I'm looking at the odds board here, it's like all you said. playing in Colorado. Colorado's been home, it feels like, for like 2 weeks now. And a Rangers team that just played a really tough one against Philly, goes into the altitude here. Colorado, you could say off the loss. I just, Levi, if you make a really good point about the overs, it sounds very square to say, but it's like you need an early one, and that'll kind of break it open. I feel like plenty of these teams play games where it's like they don't get going for some reason, and you're like, where's the speed of the Avs? I mean, it's hard to keep that up for 82 games of the regular season, but these are two teams that you can kind of see it right from the jump almost. It's kind of a feel thing. And I know there's not a lot of tangible things from that, but you could kind of see it, especially with the Avalanche, I think.
Yep. And one thing, like we talk about the Rangers quite a bit about like it's being a kind of hard team to truly get a good feel on just like how good they are. We know that they're good, but like are they as good as these other elite teams in this season? It's crazy to look at their situational splits, right? They are 18 12 and 1 when the other team scores first, which is pretty impressive record. They are 19 7 and 1 when they are outshot by opponents as well. So when they trail, after they've won 7 games after they've been behind going into the second period, and they're 33 3 and 2 when they have a lead after 2. So like they are masters at kind of just playing to the game, like the specific game that they're dealt, the specific hand that they're dealt on a nightly basis. So they're very
I also
peculiar.
think
And
they're 8-1 in overtime.
Yeah.
That helps.
yeah, and the one thing that I was going to say there is that they are still completing the most seam passes in the league this season in the offensive zone. And I do think that leads itself to a little bit of causation where when teams get in a shell in the NHL, we know what happens. And we know late in the game, 6-on-4, where everyone's playing. So if you have a team that's way better than average at finding those plays, that's resulting in a lot of timely scoring, I think. So I'm starting to worry a little bit. They're better than I credited. I'm hoping when we get into the playoffs, some of these teams can kind of lock it up a little better than we've seen. That Philly game's kind of scary though, because I think that was how it went. They got caved in, obviously. Like I don't feel bad at all that we lost the Philly handicap. It is what it is, but that's also scary because that was clearly a night where the team was pretty disinterested, half the decors out, and then they do that. So
A lot of crazy bounces in that one. It was the perfect storm of just breaks. Anyways, I'm sure we'll talk more about them, and as we get deeper and closer to the playoffs. The next one on the list here is Kings and Oilers. This one could be a first round matchup. Los Angeles is plus 130 on the road. That means Edmonton's coming back at minus 155. With the way the Kings have looked here, like I would tend to lean that way. I still believe in the Oilers. It's and the upside there. I think people are starting to. I'm not saying like abandon ship on them, but I feel like people are starting to like back away slowly from Oiler love right now. And I think that like Los Angeles makes a tough would be a tough first round opponent for anybody, and especially the Oilers. But I still think this number looks right. Like I would still make Edmonton a pretty decisive favorite in a first round matchup against the Kings. All this to say, I'm passing Nick.
Yeah, I agree. I'll keep it the same summary. I'm like in the group of people who's kind of like souring on the Oilers a little bit, but just in that I think they're like right with the other top teams. And I think that's kind of the story with like all those teams in the President's Trophy clump this year. I think there's a lot of like comparable rosters who have the odd hole or two, not really one roster that just looks head and shoulders above the other, which is obviously going to make for an unreal playoffs. And then, yeah, the other part of it, I think the Kings have raised their floor more and more. I'm, hopeful that those cup out rates we gave out around December aren't just going to be complete garbage. I think there's a chance that they can make a run. PLD starting to look really engaged. Mikey Anderson's back in the mix, playing really good. Victor Arvidsson's playing great. So if they keep getting goaltending, I still think this is a roster that really doesn't have too many flaws. I think they can kind of trend upwards and prove to be what they were at one point there. So I didn't love the 7D look versus Vancouver. That was scary. I think they were lucky to win that one. I don't really know why they are so high on England. I think he's absolutely a train wreck, but I still really like a lot of what the Kings have going on, and I agree. And it feels like they're getting into this kind of playoff mode where they can make a game coin flippy with anyone. So yeah, not I agree with you, Mike. Kind of lean with the Kings here, not comfortable laying it on the oil.
Yeah, I think you guys bring up some good points on the Oilers. I actually, and I think you guys as well, we have been pushing teams like Dallas and Colorado far more than we have Edmonton in the West. Like I have Edmonton below those two teams, and for me, it's an aspect of I think that Edmonton still has too many things that go wrong on a consistent basis, I guess. Like you can get bad Bouchard, you can get bad Cece, you can get bad Evander Kane. You like it just seems like
Come on, don't couple our boy Boosh in there.
it's
Your
true.
mouth breather, Tim. Listen to Bob Stauffer.
I and I don't totally trust their goaltending situation. I mean, listen, obviously they have Draisaitl and McDavid, but I feel like it's still kind of a lot of the same problems that they've had, and that they need those two to be going. Do you put those two together? Like it still kind of feels the same old Oilers. With that said, I still don't love LA's total matchup against them, and I think this line's right. I like under 6.5 if you can get it. LA is a dead under team. LA's also a dead under team as a dog, and Edmonton's surprisingly an under team as a favorite. So I know it was a tough look on Tuesday night when I had the Winnipeg Edmonton under, but I still think that that was the right handicap in terms of where my head was at. It kind of broke open all of a sudden in that game, and I expect these two teams to kind of lock it down in a type of playoff look here.
Okay, we'll wrap up with a wonderful tilt between the Ducks and Kraken, running it back after what we saw on Tuesday night. Seattle winning a 4-0 win, winning at 4-0. Pretty bad call by me, but I think that when you're looking at the like, I don't really don't want to lay it with the Kraken here. The line has obviously moved considerably away from them after that performance. Total 5.5. So anything here, Nick, for we get to best bets.
No, not really. I don't know. I really like the way the Kraken played. I kind of am still suspicious we'd seen the absolute worst of their roster. I don't know.
Tough, yeah, it's a pretty tough one to break down, especially because they played. I mean, the Penguins and Jackets are going to play twice. They're playing a home and home right now, so like these weird schedule spots with teams that have nothing to play for, it gets so kind of scary, which is kind of why I would think the Ducks would be the side I'd want to bet. Anyways, let's get to best bets. We'll start with you, Tim. You're sizing one up in the Flyers and Canadians tilt on Thursday night in Montreal. Philly -155, Montreal +130. This total is at 6.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Philly here. It's more of a fade on the spot for Montreal here. And look, they get a ton of credit for the way that they finished the road trip with wins over Seattle and Colorado, but this was a long road trip. It was a tough road trip, and now you come home and you have the Philadelphia Flyers, who still I think are. I know we like to say we like to back them as an underdog, but I still think they're just being a little bit underpriced here, and what they're capable of, their ceiling is. I think that they can. I think that they can do a better job of owning the play here again, especially with the Montreal spot. Philly took the Rangers down the line. They beat Boston in the last week. They've beaten Toronto. This Philly team just I think has another gear than Montreal. And again, sorry, a lot of it's baked into the spot for Montreal here. First game back from a long roadie that had some great success at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this is a great pick. Hopefully the number doesn't move too much, but really the only flaw for me is just the goaltending mismatch, but I feel pretty confident in Philly really rolling them over here. Philly's played pretty great, really. Like the
Yeah.
goaltending is what it is, but if you look at like what they accomplished last week, and I mean they've gotten the points too, so I shouldn't make it sound like we're just like trying to whatever. But even that Florida game, they were pretty excellent. Torts called out Sandstrom in a little pretty harsh, but he was pretty bad. He was the reason they lost, I'd say. I think if you traded goalies in the game, the Flyers win. So, and they outchanced them pretty heavily statistically and to the eye. So I agree. You look at last week, they played Boston really well. They played the Canes really well in Carolina, which was kind of why Mike ended up liking Philly on Saturday there. And then yeah, really good versus the Rangers the other night. So they've really caved in some excellent teams here, and I think that makes me want to overlook the goaltending concerns in this spot.
Yeah, I think so one thing that's interesting here is like the Canadians seem to be kind of jacked up by Marty St. Louis' return. So you could see like the building being pretty electric. But I'm not gonna let that deter me. I don't have any play on that one. I'm just a note, an anecdote to add. My best bet's coming in on the Vegas Golden Knights. They are plus 115 in Winnipeg. The Jets minus 135. The total here is 6. I went against Vegas with Nashville on Tuesday night. I won, but I mean, not a bet that will go up on my mantle as something I'm particularly proud of. I do think we're starting to see Vegas start to head in the right direction. We talked about the turnover and the fact that this team is going to start getting bodies back in the lineup, and in a weird way, the market could be under or overlooking them as we get into the playoffs, and they might end up with a first round matchup that really suits them if they catch Vancouver. Um, but I just think that right now the Knights are a buy on team, whereas the Jets, man, like it's still just not looking all that great. I know it was the Oilers and that's not an easy one, but they're at home and they were coming off of some down performances and they just really haven't seemed to click back into form. I tend to believe in them over the long term, but right now I think Vegas is just the better team and probably deserves a little bit more respect than being plus 115 on the road, Nick.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I think the Knights are a great play here, and the Jets just continue to look like they're proving themselves to be kind of more of a wild card team at this point to me than like a division winner, President's Trophy level kind of team that they were flirting with for a bit there. I think the blue line is pretty middling right now. Outside of Morrissey, there's no one who's really too dominant, and that third pairing is kind of a concern. I'm kind of surprised they haven't tried to work Colin Miller more. Anyways, and then I look at the top unit, and Scheifele and Connor are kind of back to their old ways in terms of like defensively. Some of the breakdowns are pretty ugly. They might produce like top players, but they're not controlling play the way that a line like Vegas's top unit of Eichel, Marchessault, and Barbashev is right now. So I'm right with you, seeing it the same way. I think the Knights are just kind of humming into that cup contender kind of mode. They've got all their guys back, or more of their guys back, and really clicking into gear. Again, it feels like one of these spots where, like, yeah, you should get a response from the Jets, but you also look at it like over their last 10 games, they're 4-5-1. How many of these have been ones where like you're circling and saying like this is the game where they're really going to come out and bounce back and look like the cup contender? And it just feels like at this point maybe they're just not as truly good as we once thought. So I agree. I'm pretty surprised to see the Knights at this big of a dog, and I would play them to plus 105.
Yeah, I was hoping to get Winnipeg cheaper here, actually, when this opened, because I honestly the Vegas spot for me, it's St. Louis to Nashville up to Winnipeg for a team that, yeah, they're getting bodies back, but it's still, they're still missing Pietrangelo, obviously Hill. I guess these guys are Pietrangelo is questionable to join them at some point on this trip, apparently. So keep your eyes open. I don't know if you guys saw any news on if they ruled for sure that he is or isn't going to join them in Winnipeg here. But this surprised me at open that it was a little too much love to Winnipeg. Probably a no bet for me, but I don't have as much conviction on Vegas as you guys do. I still kind of need to see it. I still have a little too many concerns, honestly.
Yeah, and I do think it'll tick down. I'm fairly confident. Looks pretty long to me. I think it's just off. So we'll see. And then the other note that I put out there is Vegas should be going to Logan Thompson. You would expect after he sat the other night, which I feel pretty good about. He's shown pretty well.
Yeah.
Obviously had a really good game in St. Louis on Monday. So I like that. And yeah, good pick.
Thanks, Nick. On to the last pick of the episode. Tim, your best bet. The last one of the week. Stars, Canucks. It's a pick 'em. It's in Vancouver and a total of 6.
Yeah, Dallas. I was kind of surprised to see this number what it opened at. I think Dallas is better than better than what this number is saying. Than the Vancouver Canucks. Dallas is about as complete as it gets for me. I'm getting them here at -110. It's just everywhere you look. I think Dallas is just has an edge, and they also have an edge in terms of team that knows how to play a playoff style hockey. This is all new to Vancouver. I still am giving Vancouver their full credit for the season that they've had, but I really think highly of Dallas. I feel about Dallas the way that we felt about Florida throughout the middle of the year, I would say. I'm really confident in this group, and the goaltending matchup should still be, shouldn't be that big of a deal, you hope, with how Ottinger's been. But yeah, it's Dallas all the way for me here.
Yeah, I'm big on the Stars. I thought that this opening number where they were dog was completely wrong. I still like them to -110. And you can talk about the goaltending of the Stars being a big concern, but the rest of our roster is clearly playing better in the Canucks. And the point that I've kind of been making is DeSmith has been pretty good, but he's also been super well insulated. Even in that Kings game, the Canucks did play pretty well. I think they are playing playoff hockey, Tim. Like, to me, that I actually really think they are. That's the way they've been trying to win. But the problem is they've been playing coin flip hockey with everyone, and now you're talking about the fact that they need to protect DeSmith in front of one of the deepest offenses in the league. I think that could expose him a little more. I think that they just deserve to be bigger. The Stars deserve to be at least somewhat of a favorite here. So this number kind of surprised me. I was pretty big on it, and the Canucks do get Joshua back here, who's a sneaky needle mover, but the offense has looked so flat, and I think they're just going to be really prone to trying to hang around in games. Even the Flames game could have gone a lot differently. Like, I just look at this and think, and like that Sabres game, the Caps game where they lost 2-1, the collapse versus Colorado. Like, I look at the way things are going, and I can't see how the Stars don't deserve to be a pretty big favorite here. And to defend the Canucks, like, obviously a huge reason why they're not like priced the way that they would be perhaps at another date is they don't have Demko, who's like the second best goaltender in the whole league. So I'm not trying to rip apart your team. We get that he's not there. But for the purpose of this handicap, I definitely think the Stars are a good bet and should be a bigger favorite here.
Yep, I'm with you. I think that Dallas is playable here to -120. The DeSmith situation is part of it. I just think Dallas is better. And I think an interesting conversation that we will have as we get closer to playoffs and the matchups become known and odds start percolating is that it seems like the Vancouver Canucks will be the team that everybody will pick against. They will be the team that everyone kind of bets against of the favorites, especially in the Western Conference. Do you, Nick, remember last year who that team was? The trendiest.
Yeah, it was definitely Vegas.
It was Vegas.
100% it
Yeah,
was Vegas.
so
And
I
it's
know
because they came into the year playing, they came into the playoffs playing bad. And then we all
So
look like it.
it's just a note to keep in
Yeah.
mind if you're a Canucks fan and you hear everybody picking against your team in round one. And the funny thing about that was we were all like, we bet Winnipeg. We're like, this is a team that not only can they win this round, but they could be, Hellebuck, Conn Smythe, etc., all that. They win game one kind of decisively. I think they went ahead in game two, and we're all like, wow, look at us. We're the best. We're so smart. And then Vegas won the Stanley Cup. So just keep that in mind if you are a Canucks fan or Canucks backer, and you hear everybody start to say that this is the team that's going to look vulnerable in round one. Okay.
Lebov,
Yeah.
before we go, I also got to say, I have a Vancouver 75-1, Stanley Cup ticket. So I don't want
You're a winner either way.
I don't want to see them go down. And when I say, to knock that they're not playing playoff hockey, I guess what I would try and rephrase that as Dallas is better at playing that game. I feel like, and that's kind of where I feel like the edge is. I think they're probably better at playing that game than a lot of teams on their schedule. So it's, we see it happens in football a lot, where, we have like a team that runs the ball well versus another like really physical team, and the team that just does it better, it wins that type of a matchup.
Well, and the Stars are like the second best offense in the league right now, and they've arguably gotten better since Stankoven. I mean, I think they have raised their average since he got up there. And the Canucks were way above everyone else, and they've trended down to fifth. So I feel like
fifth
that's
now,
kind
yeah.
of the disparity in my mind, is that the Stars have really pulled ahead in terms of their offensive upside.
Okay. That wraps up this episode. At the top, our favorite underdogs were the Blue Jackets against the Pittsburgh Penguins, Chicago Blackhawks against the Ottawa Senators, and Tim's was Arizona Coyotes against the Nashville Predators. Best bets on Dallas, Philadelphia Flyers, and the Vegas Golden Knights. For Tim and Nick, I'm Mike. Thank you for listening. Please rate, review, subscribe. Thank you to our producer, Noah. And if you want to check out our video on Saturday, we do something called Power Plays with Bet365 to preview that slate if you're looking for some handicapping content for the NHL over the weekend.